Hi, I'm Haley with Neuhaus Education Center. In this video, we are going to discuss oral language and listening comprehension. Oral language and listening comprehension lessons are designed to build oral language skills in your students. Oral language is listening and speaking, and a good foundation in listening and speaking will help students develop their skills in reading and writing. Strong oral language will also help students decode words because they'll be able to instantly recognize words. They can attach meaning to words that they know. They'll be able to create vivid mental pictures and use context clues more effectively. So it's really important that you take the time in your instructional day to focus on building oral language. We hope that you can devote at a minimum 5 to 8 minutes a day in building oral language, and one of the times you might do this is during your accurate and automatic reading routine in the read aloud section. For Neuhaus, when we're talking about building oral language and the oral language and listening comprehension lessons, we're talking about this manual, The Colors and Shapes of Language. It's purple. Let's look through the manual really quick, get a feel for it, and then we'll dive into a lesson. So the first thing you'll notice when you open your manual is that there's a CD. The CD is going to have tracks of all the passages from this manual so that you can play them aloud for students. If you look on Roman numeral 2, you have a table of contents for all of the CD tracks. And Roman numeral 3 has a table of contents for all of the units listed in this manual. So if I'm thinking about all the units, there's 21 units. Let's look at this really quickly. All of our oral language and listening comprehension units, there's 21. Units 1 through 10 focus on listening comprehension. Units 11 through 21 focus on transitional comprehension and metacognitive skills. So you'll notice that the activities for the units 1 through 10 are a little bit different than the activities for units 11 through 21, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So some of the activities that you're going to see are things like naming, describing, listening to a story and questioning, where you read the story out loud to students and ask them comprehension questions, listening to the story again and the teacher models a retell, and then students retell with a partner. That's going to be in the listening comprehension lesson. Some other activities that you might find in the later units might be things like this: listening, writing, editing, summarizing the passage with question cards, the 5W questions, or summarizing the passage using a card pyramid. And we'll get into all of those specific activities in later videos. You can always look at those later videos. So what we want to do now is we're going to dive deep into our manual and look at a specific unit. The unit I've chosen is Spherical Like a Marble, Unit 4 Toys, and it's on page 11 if you want to follow along. Activity 1 is naming. And we'll go into this, like I said, at a later video. But what you're doing with naming is you're following this loose script, you're reading what's bolded, and you're leading students through a naming activity. Hopefully this only takes 1 day of your 5 to 8 minute lesson. Next, you have describing. It tells you exactly what pictures or objects you'll need, and you're going to take students through the loose script for describing. I'm sorry, loose script for describing. Let me turn the page. Then we have activity 3, listening to a story. The teacher reads the story. This is The Sad Lonely Duck. And notice that I have underlined in yellow, just for my references in my manual, some places where the teacher needs to pause reading and draw a picture. If you're uncomfortable drawing or you would rather, you can use the pictures that are provided on the Neuhaus website. After you read the passage to your students, there are some comprehension questions. And then we go into activity 4, retelling the story. Students are going to retell the story with a partner using those picture prompts that you've provided. I think it's always important that the teacher models this practice first. Then on activity 5, you have listing. Students make lists using the following prompts. Early in your oral language, you might need to guide the writing for that. You could be their scribe. And then later, as students become more adept at writing, you can transition that to them. Same with activity 6, which is writing a story. There's all these different activities here that you can lead students through writing, and same with activity 7, editing. Like I said, that some of the units towards the end, when we're getting into metacognition activities, are going to have summarizing. So let's look at this. This is I'm on page 35. It's unit 11, all about money. And this is an example of one of the activities that's going to be a little bit different from the beginning units, and this is thinking about the story. You're going to summarize using a 5W cards, which are the who, what, when, where, why cards, and it's going to lead you through the entire passage. And there's some other ones that you will do something similar with your card pyramid. So basically, when you're planning out lessons, all you need is this manual and maybe some pictures or some index cards for students. But if you read through the entire unit before instructing students so that you know what you need and you can anticipate any questions or misunderstandings students might have, and you also will be able to pay attention to the important vocabulary you want to make sure and point out, that's really all you need to do to prepare. During oral language and listening comprehension lessons, you want students to be actively engaged. You want them to be giving you answers, calling out, having discussions. This isn't the time to raise a hand and call on one student at a time. So think about ways that you can get your kids engaged and you want them speaking. Remember, the one who's doing the speaking is doing the learning. If you have any more questions about how to go through an oral language and listening comprehension lesson, you can look at the rest of these videos where we'll do a deep dive into some of the components. You can look at your training materials or your colors and shapes manual.